Something I'd like to discuss is aspects of the plot of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice I found quite interesting, given some aspects of the first movie which I rewatched so that I could get some notes together about this whole thing. Of course, there will be spoilers in this video for both Beetlejuice movies, so bear that in mind. If you haven't seen the movie, you might want to avoid this video till you have. First of all, a few cute little bits of foreshadowing from the first movie. Well, not really foreshadowing, but things that call back to the first movie. Like one thing where Lydia's mother gets trapped by the statue, and she has this one line where she's like, these statues are mine, I'm the artist, and they are dangerous. Do you think I want to die like this? That is exactly how she does die in the second Beetlejuice, by her own art, because of the asp she's using as prop to try and make art out of her own grief. So that's quite a funny little callback there. Also, there's something rather interesting with also just like how the Dietzes react to their own deaths as well, because it really says a lot about them as characters, and also how much they're kind of prepared for everything, given the end of the first Beetlejuice movie showed Miss Charles Dietz reading a book about the supernatural by the same press that published the guidebook, which kind of implies that he may also have read the guidebook later on as well, out of curiosity, possibly. So I quite like that, partially probably because of that, when he does arrive in the afterlife in the second movie, he's completely unbothered by it. He's just kind of like a little bit confused, but otherwise he kind of knows what's going on. He's like, fair enough, I got eaten by a shark. It's, you know, he's just relatively chill about it, and I quite like the whole thing. I quite like the idea that it's because he kind of was already prepared for it by reading the handbook, so he kind of knew what to expect. Even if he didn't know the layout of the afterlife, because who would? They've never been there before. But also, like, the whole thing with the ending, 'cause a lot of people consider the ending to be of the second movie to be a little bit rushed, but there's something interesting about it that's very different to the first movie that kind of, I wouldn't say excuses, but explains that, which is that in the first movie, Beetlejuice's marriage with Lydia was purely a verbal contract. It was just a quick, hey, let's do this, okay, fine, fair enough, and so there wasn't really anything legally binding behind it. But in the second movie, we see just how strict the afterlife is about binding agreements, because when Astrid accidentally agrees to trade her life for her deceased temporary boyfriend, the afterlife is very keen on making sure that happens any way it can, until it becomes nullified by the failure of that character to get a stamp to seal the deal. So clearly, when a certain agreement is made either through a magic spell or through a contract, the afterlife is very keen on in some way enforcing it. And also, a lot of the afterlife characters don't really care anymore. They've lost a lot of humanity, partially because a lot of the people working at the afterlife are given out as not given out, are described as being suicides, hence the woman at the check-in desk who slit her wrists in the first movie, and also the Dan DeVito's character who drank drain cleaner, that sort of thing. A lot of them are suicides. So because of that, you can kind of get the idea that they've just kind of stopped caring. And not in a way that kind of implies that suicide's in a way kind of like giving up or anything like that. I'm more just saying, given what they've been through in their lives and in their afterlives, they've just kind of lost any connection to the people that they were, and have just stopped caring about people, while other people, like the caseworker from the first movie, Juno, do genuinely care about the people they're working with, partially because they also don't have the disconnects that the front desk people have, because the front desk people deal with hundreds of spirits every day. They're just kind of tired of it. Just take a number, take a seat, it's fine, just let them get dealt with by the way you're meant to get dealt with. But the caseworkers specifically, they get actual rapport with their clients, and so they actually start caring about them, and they're able, Juno's kind of there to help the Maitlands avoid making the stupidest mistake they're about to make in the first movie, which of course fails. But the key thing I'm getting at here is the important thing in the second movie that didn't happen in the first is Beetlejuice having Lydia sign a contract. Given how the afterlife is shown to be quite stringent when it comes to making sure people keep their promises, given he had her sign a binding contract, that kind of implies that might be the reason he was so powerful during the marriage. We didn't see any of the clauses in the contract, but it can be inferred that he probably had clauses in place to elicit the idea that no one could interfere with the wedding because it had been agreed upon. So, no one's allowed to say his name. Like in the previous movie, he had to physically stop people saying his name through his magic. But in the second movie, it seems a lot more automatic, probably because he has it in the contract that no one can banish him for the duration of the wedding and the marriage. And also, the whole contract thing, that would most likely also imply why he so easily overpowers his ex and also the cop, because they are powerless to go against the letter of the law. Of course, that's not really saying much when it comes to the soul sucker, the ex-girlfriend, because she doesn't really care about the law. But that doesn't really kind of help her when the contract is being enforced magically. And also, another interesting thing with it is that also is probably what bites Beetlejuice so severely as well, because in the first movie he's completely not beholden to any laws at all, but because he's got a contract with Lydia now, he's now beholden to the law of the underworld. So when it's revealed that the contract is null and void, then the underworld starts kind of clawing back, hence him being completely unable to stop people saying his name the 3 times, and also being quite literally immobilized when it happens, because the underworld's just going, okay, yeah, nice try, mate, but you're on our time now. So that's just kind of like my sort of defense for the ending of the second movie, and why I feel, while it's not narratively satisfying in a lot of ways, while it is funny, and I really enjoy the MacArthur Park section, it is, like, it can be described as internally consistent. You can find logic there, and so I don't really mind it so much. I just thought I'd put that together and get my thoughts out on that. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Goodbye. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and check out my Patreon as well. Speaking of, thank you to James Rossi for supporting me on Patreon.